Welcome. So back 2 weeks ago, we started this series that we were going to do back-to-back nights of telling all the years. We did 6 years of RV travel and full-time travel abroad, and we were going to tell the story back-to-back nights, but then something happened.
Yep.
The brewery's opened here. Well, I've been kind of reluctant to go see because I didn't want to deal with the masks, and finally I decided, you know what? I need the best of both worlds, and we're here in Polson, and there's so many amazing things about it, but I was finding myself like too sheltered because we were, when you're a campground, you're around people, but here we're kind of isolated. And as much as I think I'm an introvert, I think I might be an extrovert a lot of times too. And so we went out to the brewery and like everything's open, no masks anywhere. It's like regular normal life. And so we just kept going to the brewery every night, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to film this after. So we're filming now. We have we're going for the wine and our storytelling, and we're going to tell about the best year ever of travel. It's too bad Victor was there and hated it, because it was the most epic year of travel anybody could want.
Throw me under the bus like that.
Did you love it?
Yes. Was I with you? Yes.
So you loved it? Did you love today? Yes.
Did I love today?
Did you love yesterday? Were you with me?
Yes.
Okay. Victor liked it a little bit. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but in retrospect, when you finish hearing this podcast, YouTube, of the year that we had of travel in 2017, you're going to want to travel.
Robyn's, we started to do these and realize how many stories we have. And so bear with, there's so much great stories and things that we learn from. And then my own personal growth, which is still always ongoing, is I really could care less sharing it with. I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, hey, this is just, Robyn's always encouraging me to be whoever I am, right?
So 2017 started off with a great road trip because 2016, I think we told the story about Europe. Did we in the first one? We talked about, okay, when we went to Europe for a year, or for 6 months. We started off, we went back to San Diego. We always go there for winter to surf and Christmas time, see family. And we started off, I think it was probably April, usually it's around spring, that we do a California coast road trip, and we went up to Mendocino. There were, it was a nice trip. It was the kind of trip
it's
that
familiar.
If you don't travel a lot and you just wanted, especially if you have young kids, it was a really nice road trip. It was pleasant.
It's pleasant, I think.
Nothing epic.
Things, nothing epic, but it's also, there's a predictability, consistency. They're never too far from, creature comforts, which makes it critical for like little kids.
And like for us now, we always want to bag these epic peaks. Then at the time, it was like, wow, there's this like nice little 2 to 4 mile strolls in the forest. I mean, Mendocino, Russian Gulch, just so gorgeous. It's so great. And so we started there, and I'd love to, honestly, I could spend an hour telling you about all the great things in Mendocino area and that whole road trip, surfing the coast. It was great, but we have a lot to cover this year. So
let's get into it.
Costa Rica. We went back to Costa Rica in 2017. And it's sad. I should have looked at, I'm pretty sure that's the time where we did a whole month. Yeah, we did a whole month in Costa Rica, and we hit like 4 areas, and it was so awesome. We could have spent like double, triple the amount of time on that trip. We started off in Pavones. Getting to Pavones now is it's kind of easy, I think. It's
easier. I still don't think it's easy.
I don't know if with COVID and stuff, if it's easy, but it's easy in like the roads. It's like there's a road now.
No.
I'm pretty sure it's mostly paved.
Paved?
I'm pretty sure.
How long? We're on a gravel dirt road for...
Hours.
Hours, yeah. It's horrible.
Pavones is like the furthest south you can get, pretty much on the Pacific side of Costa Rica. And it's a great left-breaking wave. In fact, like one time I caught it, and I think I was on the wave for like 10 minutes. Felt like... And you had to, like, it's so long you can't paddle back. You can't paddle back. Like, you really don't want to paddle back. You just get out and walk back for 5 minutes and then paddle back in.
Yeah, literally a couple 200-yard rides are common there when the wave connects, so it makes it really epic. But if you're not a surfer, I don't know if anything else would draw you down there, right?
Oh, yoga. There's a lot of really nice yoga retreats.
Yeah.
The place that we always stay at is really nice because they have this huge yoga deck, and it's a pretty small resort. I don't know. The owners are cool. What's the place called?
Marea Alta.
That's
Casa
right.
Marea Alta.
And there's that little town. Is it Punta Banco?
Punta Banco, yeah.
Is right below. Like we kind of stay between Punta Banco.
One of the things with going down that far to Costa Rica is like you're going to have to like to eat your gallo pinto and plantains. There's not a whole lot in amenities, and there's some small stores, but definitely was awesome. I think for me, I could sit and stare at waves. So it was, even if I wasn't ever catching waves, because it was always about that, then I would just get angry. It was certainly a pretty cool vacation, but starting there for an entire month gave us a sense of like, well, we have time, right?
Yeah. So the other thing with Costa Rica is he stares at waves, but I'm like, you stare at so much wildlife there. There's so many birds and monkeys right above your head. And that part was really amazing. As far as food, it's kind of cool because for us, because we're traveling on a budget, it's easy there's like a truck drives by for $20. You fill up enough produce for our family for a week almost. And then you just go to the gas station, of course, and that's where you get your meat, because the gas station is also the grocery store, and it's not really even a gas station because you get bottles of gas, like oil can. What you'd fill your oil with is like how you get the gas down there. But it was great, and you just end up, it's kind of like hostel living, and you end up saving so much money. That's why we traveled so much, because you end up in these locations that you can't spend hundreds of dollars.
The uniqueness was with us staying in the hostel, and this is always that was actually a nice part of being in a large family, is you booked the whole hostel. Right?
Almost. That was when we stayed with all those French guys that were so
but we're
amazing.
in the same room, right? I mean, think about that.
So we were staying with these three young French guys that were also in like the hostel, or the room next to us and whatever. And they, so we had already been to France, and I have these weird things about me that like little things, like I'll tell you, I can tell you eat salads and eat more protein and more healthy fats and all these typical healthy things. But then I'll tell you weird things like an emergency packet before you go for a run. And it's just like, I'll have my best runs after that. Or I cannot eat food if I'm having a glass of wine. It's like you have your wine and then you finish and then you have your meal. You don't mix the two. And whereas Victor's like, no, I have to have my food with my wine. And I totally believe him. I think it's because he's type O, I'm type A, but I have weird theories until we met these Frenchmen. And they have just as weird of theories as me. And so I think sometimes, maybe just because I have French blood, I don't know, but it was so funny. There's these little pitayas, and they're like these little red berries that grow on the plant, and they're packed with vitamin C. And they'll say things like, no, don't eat those. It's too close to bedtime. You'll never sleep. And it's totally a thing. It's so true. If I had those before bed, I would not sleep. Or even just how they cook, the meals they prepared with like the ratio of veggies to eggs, and it was cool.
Unique. Is it always inside? I think that's one of those side notes on travel and mixing with other people and learning about other cultures. But Costa Rica always has
and it's funny how you go to certain spots and like food for us. Victor and Danny have to eat a lot all the time. And so one of the things that help is that you can find eggs anywhere. And I should say eat a lot. They eat very clean, but high protein diet. So you don't want to be stuck on a road trip between Danny and Victor on a high protein diet.
It's not true.
Okay, it's not true. But you get eggs everywhere. And so, we always travel with our cookware so we can cook on the side of the road or anywhere we need to. And it was interesting.
Then
I don't know if we did on that trip, but
normally
there in Costa Rica, you can always find eggs. Like within a mile, you can walk and always find eggs. And it's just interesting. Like, for example, when we were in Spain later this year, and we did France and then we did Spain, and we saw our friends in Spain. And I'm like, okay, if you're on the Basque country of Spain, you don't necessarily like that corner of France that we love, that Hossegor, Biarritz area. All good people. Everyone's good people. But like, I'm kind of partial, like just a little, like this much, like if you're on the podcast, but huge to French food. Okay, chocolate croissants, French
baguettes,
butter,
French
baguettes.
butter.
I'm sorry, like nobody does it in the world as good as. And so then you're on the Spain side, and while the Basque people have amazing chorizo, and they have amazing, actually, what you would be surprised is like their pastries with apple, because that the Asturias area has so many apples growing.
Yeah.
They have a lot of pastries, but they do the bread different. It's like more of like, if you've been to Mexico, you have the pastries there. It's more with oil than with the butter, and it just tastes different. And so we would joke with our friend, like, it's not the same. Where's the French butter and stuff? They're like very offensive. Like, how dare you say, like, French food is not that good. It's not like our Spanish food here.
But there's obviously a little bit of every country has their personal pride. So, but when they see something, I remember our friends thinking it was really strange that Robyn was taking butter and putting it on her bread. It's like, that's kind of weird. We don't see that around here.
And literally, it's like France is, I don't know, 50 miles away, and like, we don't see that. That's weird. What are you talking about? You go surf in France and you see that. I'm not so weird.
But back to Costa Rica. So,
go ahead. You have a story for Pavones?
Not that I remember off the top. Where were you going to go with?
Where our next stop was Playa Negra.
Playa Negra. Too heavy a wave.
Playa Negra, man, you pull in, and that was the first time for me to try and pretend to be a good surfer. And I mean, right when we got there was a competition. It wasn't the WSL, but it was a pretty high level competition going on. And it's just the perfect breaking wave. And from the shore, you're like, maybe. And I paddled out one time there, and I don't have a tendency to sit on the sideline long enough. I sat on the side of the lineup for a little while, but I write about this in my book that I'm like, my ego definitely got in the way. And I'm like, all right, I can go. These guys are going. I'm good. I can do this. And I got crushed, and like, you just get slammed against the reef, and it takes one time of hitting the reef hard, and you're like, I'm good. I'm just going to go watch you, Gabi. And even Gabi, who's better surfer than me by far.
But she was younger. I think now she could probably
Now she'd be totally fine. Then she caught one.
It's a strange sport in that you're always adjusting, and there's like risk assessment, right?
For sure. I mean, I'm not on a short enough board for that wave, but at the time, you want to try. Playa Negra. It was amazing how just hot it was. Like, that was Costa Rica hot.
You couldn't even, like, you could not get from your house to the water without giving yourself significant burn.
And all the bats. There were so many bats in our house. There we rented a house.
Yeah, it was just absolutely stunning. It was just gorgeous.
And then we went over, from there, we went into the middle to Arenal and Monteverde. And that part was really cool because very different. Monteverde, I kind of liked better in some ways. That's where we went ziplining through the forest. Yeah. And that was really cool.
One of the most, for me, ziplining was one of the coolest experiences, being above that canopy.
Arenal, they're both like slightly touristy, I'm sure more. What was nice is Monteverde, I'm trying to think, like, you drive up, it's like such a steep hill to get up there, and it's maybe because it's touristy, but I know a big thing with, like, that was the one we had to pay a ton of money just to go walk through a forest. I was kind of mad about that.
Is that Cerro Chato?
No, this was a different, that's in Arenal. This one we had to pay. Yeah. No. It's a different one. We should have taken notes before we were squeezing in. We got to record. Open the bottle of wine. Let's record real quick. This one was, you had to pay. It's like a reserve. I think it was Santa Rosa. It was a reserve, and you had to pay. We were on such a tight budget, and it was like, I don't know, probably $10 per person to go walk through this forest. And they make it sound like, if you walk through, you're going to see all this wildlife, and you might see the famous Quetzalcoatl, or whatever that bird is. You don't remember. And so you had to walk through, and I remember the whole time, like, thinking, gosh, compared to like a regular national park in the U.S., like, it wasn't that amazing. Now, the birds, yes, they're trying to sell you, but listen to all the butterflies and birds, or not listen to the birds, see the butterflies. This shows a healthy ecosystem. But part of me just felt like, I just got ripped off. This is not, it's a forest. It's beautiful. It's a forest.
Oh, now I remember. Yeah, I remember.
And at the end, you're just like, I don't know. I just spent $60 for. So it's those two areas. There's this tug between, okay, you're supporting the community.
Local economy, yeah.
And I felt like this in Croatia a lot too. But at the same time, you're kind of like, yeah, well, that wasn't much of a wow factor for the money. The zip lining was pretty cool though.
Yeah, definitely. And when does the Gavilana story come in?
That's the next. Okay, so Victor's been ready for this. He's pumped for this story.
No,
so
I'm not pumped for it.
I'm gonna have to introduce it really well. From Monteverde, we went over to Monteverde. I got another story really quick. We go to Monteverde and we're driving our rental car, which is of course a minivan because it's the only thing that fits us. And the roads are really steep. And to get to some of these areas, you're on a dirt gravel road. Well, the minivan was manual, which wasn't a big deal. I'm used to driving quads, and I'm used to stick shift. It's not a big deal. But we turn a corner, and you must have been driving. Were you driving then?
Nope.
No. And there's a roadblock. And so we stall. Yes, you were driving.
Oh, yeah. And I ended up against the wall.
He stalled, and then because we had to stop, he ended up, when he went to go start again, we rolled up. We were like at the side of a cliff. And this Toyota Tacoma had to pull us out.
Yeah.
Do you remember now?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember that now. And I hated that.
So this is why Victor, like, now I'm telling the story not to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do that. It's more like we need to practice empathy and compassion. Like, he wasn't in those situations as a kid. And it was a little stressful because, if at the time, I remember I ended up driving and I had to pop the clutch to get us going again. For some reason, they towed us out. And then I remember when they towed me out, I'm used to, with our quads, we used to...
Once they get the speed up,
once you get the speed, you put in second, you pop the clutch, and then you start going again. And it was like a big deal because all the workers come to help, like, pull us out of this ditch before we go off of a cliff with our minivan. Right?
Yeah.
And then, like, Victor's just like, I just, like, blocked that. I did not want to remember that.
Great. Thanks for reminding me that.
But it was fun.
It was seriously like 20 degrees. It was super steep. Like, why anyone would grade a road that... I remember now.
Yeah.
It's like everything is so steep, and you have like this 4-cylinder minivan, and we're packed.
And it was a blind corner. You turned the corner and
boom.
And like had to hit the brakes, and then it stalled, and then when you went to go restart, it went back, and then you're on the edge, and we're like, stop, and then everyone gets together, and they're like, don't worry, I got a rope. We'll hit you up and pull you out.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Experiences.
To me, remember, if you watched our past ones, Carrots and Sticks, to me, that was a carrot. People came together to help each other out and pull you out of that situation, so it was a win. You might have looked at it as a carrot then, but now you're looking at it as a stick back then, but now it's a carrot.
Definitely a carrot.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I trapped more faith in people.
And then we drove across from there to Arenal, and do you remember stopping at that famous German bakery?
Yeah.
It was so yummy. And the whole, like, countryside there, it's gorgeous. So, I mean, Monteverde, really touristy, Arenal, really touristy, but then there's this space between the two on the lake that was really pretty and just reminded me of driving through Europe. When we got to Arenal, we did not stay in town. We stayed on the outskirts. I don't remember what the town was called, but we get there and... Gosh, what was that area called? It's going to bug me. We stayed in this like glamping area that my brother had stayed in, and he said, it was really cool. And I'm like, all right, perfect. We get there, and Victor's stomach wasn't well. And I remember it was because when we were in Monteverde, we made the mistake of drinking out of the tap a few times. And, you shouldn't do that, but we did. And we drank tap water a few times. And honestly, it's not that it's bad.
I remember by Pavonis, I was already hurting.
That's true. And you know what? It's even like in Montana, the same thing that it's not that the water's bad, it's that the mineral content is different. So it starts to affect you just because of the mineral difference. It's not like you're getting sick per se, but the water would come in and it would just push everything right out really fast.
Yeah.
So we go for a walk down to...
So Robyn went for this walk and she came across a lady and...
Well, it was literally... I know, I'm sorry. I promise I'll let you tell the story.
Okay, go ahead.
It was, the girls and I were, where we were staying, we were kind of on the outskirts and we were bored. And so we're walking a dirt road and there's nothing to do or see except that I see a sign that says cafe. I'm like, ooh, let's go get a cup of coffee. That would be fun. Except it's not there's nothing there. It's not really even a coffee shop. I walk in and the lady's she's like making a funny face. She's like, oh, sorry. I just took a shot of Gavilana. It's because my stomach's not well, and I'm like, huh? your stomach's not well? You took a shot? Wait, catch me up. Tell me, well, yeah, like we make our own gavilana because sometimes, you drink the water or you eat food that's bad and it messes your stomach up. So we make this thing called gavilana that's, how much proof?
I mean,
80?
it was like tequila, if not a little bit stronger, like mezcal.
Yeah.
Like it was a high proof.
Okay, you can tell the story now.
And so Robyn purchases this bottle of gavilana, which is essentially a bitters mezcal, the way I put it. It's a bitters alcohol. So it's extremely bitter. And the gal tells Robyn that I should take a shot every hour till the runs go away. Well, they come back and I'm like, well, I'm hurting. I'm dehydrated.
One thing about Victor, if I say you should try this, he tries every time. That's why he healed his adrenals, but he's really good at this.
So
I wouldn't have been able to take that many shots.
I think 6 shots that night in 6 hours. I'm feeling. It's like I don't know if I have the runs anymore, but I'm drunk. And actually, 3 shots in, I'm like. I was getting better. I didn't need to go run to the bathroom every hour or every time I ate. And so...
Then the next day...
Yeah, the next day is when we did Cerro Chato. And I still had some of the bottle left. So we went and hiked, what was that, 5-6 hours?
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty
But I basically did the same thing. And I'm thinking to myself... Man, I am so drunk, but I'm so happy I don't have the run.
And at the end, I got like, you should definitely hike with this more often. It was so fun.
And so I come to find out that, bitters essentially, like from a physiological standpoint, essentially create your own probiotic sludge by putting something bitter in your mouth. And that's part of the reason some of the health benefits associated with eating something like arugula triggers a mechanism in your gut to release this probiotic sludge.
That is one of my weird things is like there's nothing like arugula, and it's hard to get arugula here in Polson. It drives me crazy. But like one of my weird things is like we used to live off of arugula, and I can't right now. Yeah, we need to grow it.
So gavilana. If you ever have any problems, swear 3 shots in, you're going to be like, wow, this is working.
Yeah, and it was so fun to hike with Victor
and
that day. I have proof. It's in my book. I talk about like, oh yeah, my husband, he was so fun to hike with that day.
Because I was drunk.
Okay, so then from Costa Rica there, we went to the other side. Did you have another story?
No. Go to the other side.
We went to the Caribbean side, and my sister and my brother-in-law bought a bar, and I'm going to tell you the name of the bar, and like 10% of the listeners are like, I've been there. They bought a bar in Costa Rica called Tasty Waves and created such an amazing vibe there, culture for sure. And it was our first time to go there, and I was really excited to see that side, the Caribbean side. It's so beautiful. The only thing with it is it was pretty cool to be there and see 2 sides of like, wow, this is really cool what you guys created. And 2, I totally get why you live in the US, because if I had to live down there, and my sister's a lot like me, yes, I love to surf. Oh, she's a lot like me and she doesn't even surf. So there's just a lot to do, but not really anything to do. Actually, there's not a lot to do. It's a cool vibe if you love sitting on the beach, drinking, and you can surf whenever you want or whenever the surf is good. It's awesome. But it was hard. I remember being on that side thinking like, God, there's not a lot other than partying and surfing. That's pretty, and it was hot, and where else you have the rainy season. It was really cool to go to Sloth Beach. What's that?
Punta Uva.
Punta Uva. There are there's a cool sloth. So it was really an amazing start to the year between our 2-week road trip and then going to Costa Rica.
And then we landed and turned around.
That was amazing, and our year was just getting started. So
gosh, we're gonna need like 3 podcasts for this.
And we're on a time schedule because you have a client coming in soon. So all right, so we go for an 11-week road trip. This was, to me, actually, Costa Rica was cool, but this was going to be like my dream, because nothing is as awesome as a road trip in the U.S., to me at least. After all the places we traveled, I would choose a U.S. road trip any day. So we went to, starting in San Diego, up real fast through California, Oregon. I mean, real fast by my standards, like a week or 2, through California, Oregon. It's funny, this is where we started our Nomads blog really a lot that year. And I have so many stories that I kind of had given up on like, because what happens is you end up writing a blog out of like, oh, I want to share. And then you're like, well, nobody finds it if you don't SEO it. So you have to write what people want to hear instead of what you want to hear. And so it's interesting. That was kind of the year I still got to write about what I like to talk about, but it didn't SEO, so nobody saw it. So I had to like kind of abandon all those stories.
Well, you probably ended up learning a little bit about the business of blogging, right?
Yeah, you kind of had to move from passion to business, which is not always good. We ended up in the area Leavenworth. We did the enchantments. That was
Washington.
An amazing hike. We went through, and then we crossed the border into Canada and discovered Squamish and Whistler. Wow. Any highlights for Squamish? Was a spot that you really liked?
I really liked Squamish because you could get lost, and poor Canada. Poor Canada.
It's not fair.
You just don't know what'll happen there at this point. But ultimately, what's awesome about Squamish is you can be 20 minutes. You can be at a brewery or groceries, and you could be lost in this beautiful little wilderness. I love Squamish because the access points to the rock climbing were super easy. The hikes are easy to find. The Chief alone, just standing under the Chief.
So in Squamish, there's this huge dome, almost picture like a Yosemite-sized dome sitting in the middle of the town. It's called the Chief, and so you can hike to the top of that. You can rock climb it. But right next to it, there's an area called Smoke Bluffs, and it's literally like rock climbing in a residential area. So the kids can be playing on the playground while we're rock climbing.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's top rope. So we weren't as good, especially I haven't improved at all since then, but Gabi's gotten much better at rock climbing. So we actually, as a family, climb better.
It's just like surfing. I don't consider myself a rock climber or a surfer ever.
Maybe this year.
I don't know.
Maybe this year. So we spent a lot of time in Squamish. I'm like, I have a notes because otherwise I wouldn't remember, but we have the best story here. In Squamish, I actually wrote a blog about one of the cool things is like we bounce between Squamish and Whistler, and there's this highway. Well, a lot of times to save money, we'll just camp. We don't call it camp. We just sleep on the side of the road. And I remember waking up one morning and being like, yeah, this is the dream. This is the life. Victor's thinking like, this is the dream? You want to wake up on the side of a highway and then go rock climbing and I haven't showered in 2 days? This is not the dream.
Yeah.
But it was the dream to me at the time. It still is the dream. So we end up, we slept on the side of the road, which I was like, score, free camping. All right, nothing happens. Beautiful day. Hey, let's go park the RV at, where'd you go swimming? Brom Lake. And then we're going to go rock. My brother was with us at the time. And so we could take his car, Francisco, to the rock climbing and leave the RV.
Our brother's not called Francisco. His car was called Francisco.
We'll leave the RV in the parking lot.
With the kids.
With the younger kids, and just Gabi, me, Victor, and my brother will go rock climb. I'm like, this makes so much sense. This is great. And I was going to I didn't trick him. I kind of told him like, hey, we're going to go climb and I'm going to take him up a multi-pitch. And he had never done that. So we go climb. I pull in the Brom parking lot. It's 7 a.m. I'm not really thinking about like, oh, it's only 7 a.m. It's empty right now. Duh. There were no signs that said no RV parking. And so we go climb. And I take Victor up a multi-pitch. It wasn't a crazy multi-pitch, but it was a multi-pitch.
There's 2 pitches.
Do you remember when you got up to the first pitch?
Oh, yeah. Same thing that happens every time we try to multi-pitch. I freak out like, what are we doing up here? How am I supposed to like control the rope? It's like, it's so much rope management.
He gets there and I'm like, okay, so you're on a sheer rock face. You know, we're probably like 60 meters up. No, 60 feet up. 60 feet up. And I go, okay, well, just like tie in, like put on your personal anchor into the anchors, and then you're gonna belay me. You want me to do what? Yeah. Just like clip yourself in here. Look, clip in. Okay, you're good. See, you won't fall. Let go. No. Let go with both hands. No. Both hands at the same time, right?
Yeah, that's the hard part is like I wanted to hold on with one hand.
But you're going to need 2 hands to belay me.
It's such an uncomfortable feeling the first time, but.
And he did.
Yeah.
He did. It was great.
Probably better than the last time we just
And
did
so
it.
we get up I get up the second pitch and he's about to come up the second pitch and my phone's ringing. And I'm like, okay. I look at my phone. I'm like, it's Isabelle. Shoot. Oh no, sorry. It was Danny. Danny's like, we have a problem. You need to get back here ASAP.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're in the middle of a climb. Victor, climb faster. He's like, I'm so not comfortable with this, but you want me to? I'm like, the kids need us. And so you've never seen Victor climb so fast. All you have to say is, the kids need us. And he's like so he flew up that rock. So we go back, and I guess you should tell. I talk too much. You tell the story with Isabelle.
Well, apparently the story goes is that because Robyn was parked in this very small parking lot, they started getting grief because it was a very popular weekend, and so it's filled up really quick. And Robyn was across a couple sites, as opposed to actually fitting in.
Yeah, so
site.
like I was hogging 3
She was hogging 3 sites in our Class C, and Isabelle, or a car pulled up and started giving the kids a hard time about parking there, and they were in the call police. Here. And well, Daniel probably should have been the one to handle the situation. He just kind of like ignored it. And Isabelle, who then was how old?
I'll do the math while you talk.
Well, Isabelle steps out to like go to talk to her. She's thinking she's gonna go. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. And it escalated to the
13.
point. Yeah, she was 13, and obviously the person who was of driving age or older, but not much. I mean, ultimately she was a young lady and decided to like, oh, I'm gonna vent to this young lady, and it was really, really to the point where Isabelle was so angry when I got back that she's like, you could tell
she was vibrating.
Like, oh my God, Dad, I just wanted to bite this lady.
She had an altercation with her because the lady.
Not an altercation, a verbal altercation, not a physical altercation.
I just said altercation.
Well, you gotta be careful. People think Isabelle was in a fight with a Canadian.
But she wasn't a verbal fight. And it was a big deal because we still joke to it to this day that, Isabelle teaches mindfulness to kids. And I was like, but at the time, she was just so hurt that the person attacked her that her 8 wing came out, and she's just like, step back, lady. You are not allowed to talk to me this way. We cannot move the RV. We do not have driver's license. You need to just leave. And put the lady in her place, because the lady was yelling at her and attacking her, like, we're going to call the police on you. And in everyone's defense on the Nomad side, there was not a sign that said no RV parking. And Isabelle said that, like, there's no sign. She's like, well, there used to be. And Isabelle's like, well, how am I supposed to know that if there used to be and there's not now? And Isabelle's pretty sharp.
Even-tempered.
She can like hold her own in those type of things. And it was really funny because now we just joke like, Isabelle's so nice, but don't have an angry Canadian.
Yeah, we'll make the angry Canadian joke all the time.
And she loved it. So that wraps up Canada's Whistler side. And then we went through Glacier National Park in the Canadian side, which was absolutely gorgeous. It was a little too bad because my wonderful husband chose to work out in the campground instead of go explore the beautiful trails.
That was one day, okay?
And then we went.
Well, at that point, I was still traveling with a bunch of free weight and a barbell, and I would just rip it out in a campground and work out because I felt like I was losing my gains. But at this point, I'm like, I don't lose sleep over working out, but sometimes my body tells me I got to go do some push-ups or whatever that was. I remember at the time, I have a picture of it because I was creating like, I'll create content. Thinking to myself, what the hell was I thinking? Of course, we did have Tati at the time, and Tati was just so horrible at hiking. And so it's just like at that point, it was a win-win because I'm like, I got to work out. Tati got here. Robyn got to go hike with the 3 elders.
And Jiraiya went with us, I think, on that.
Yeah,
didn't he?
Yeah, it was just me and Tati.
Good. It was really, it's an underrated area of Canada. Canada's Glacier National Park. It's really, really pretty. We went from there to Banff, and that was amazing. You can't say enough about how gorgeous Banff. But yeah, I was just gonna say, but it's crowded. Like,
and it's touristy.
It's really crowded.
And we did Lake Louise.
There's some cool things though about like if you're on a budget. I thought this was pretty cool. There's this huge parking lot like a few miles outside of Banff that it's only maybe $20 to camp. Probably about $20 to camp out overnight. Like 100 people do it. And then a shuttle bus will pick you up from that campground and take you up to Lake Louise and Moraine Lake, which is really cool because the crowds can get so bad that there's no parking and it's a little
And
stressful.
traffic, yeah.
So that was really unique. I've been through Banff a couple times since then, and it's a great. I mean, what's not to love about Banff and Jasper Icefields Parkway? It's so great. On that trip, we only did Banff. We hadn't gone through the other spots, but
Partially because of the fires.
another
Right?
trip. We went from there down south towards Canmore. The one thing about like hiking all of those Glacier, Canada's Glacier, Banff, Lake Louise, like there are some easy hikes, but there are so many intense hikes. Like, gosh, there's a couple. I mean, even Lake Louise, you can just go to Lake Louise and take a picture, or you can hike. We did like a 13-mile up through Devil's Thumb, and you can make it really adventurous.
I did the tea house with Tati, and she was like done at that point, right?
It reminded me, I know what it is. It was a mix of between what, like in Europe, you have really amazing hikes to refugios and hotels, restaurants up on the top of the mountain.
Very common when you hike in Europe for there to be sort of a destination, get a nice cup of tea, have a nice meal, and then climb down. But in the States, because we have so many bigger peaks, and a lot of that is not developed.
It's just not developed.
It's not developed, so that we don't have that.
As far as a country, we're kind of babies.
At that point, I think another couple hundred years, and we're going to see that a little bit more often because people are going to want to live in these areas. Because a lot of
Isabelle's dream is to put like refugios on U.S. mountaintops. Yeah. So then from there, we went down to Idaho, and this was our first. Honestly, of all that I can say, Squamish was amazing, Banff was amazing, but then we got to Idaho, and like Idaho spoke more to my soul because it's so gorgeous, so amazing, but like without all the fluff, all the touristy stuff. Like it's just, Idaho is just raw and real. And it's kind of a happy medium for us because we both love Idaho.
Yeah, Idaho is nice.
Okay, not love, like.
Well, Robyn always uses that word love, and I save that word for select things like my wife. I love my wife.
I like Idaho.
I like Idaho. I like Idaho a lot because it provides an opportunity, sort of less regulation, more self-regulated. Like, go out there, ride your quads, ride your razors, like figure it out. You know, it's a lot more wild, right?
Oh yeah, I love that about Idaho.
So
it's not regulated.
Personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is one of those places. So you have all these areas that you can get lost and just be off grid if you wanted.
It was really nice. So we discovered on that trip, the first time we went to Sandpoint, which was amazing, McCall,
Stanley.
Oh, Stanley. Goat Lake. Goat Lake's pretty amazing because you can hike. It's a little steep, but come on, it's like 2-3 miles to the lake, and it's one of the prettiest lakes ever to get to, and I thought that whole trip was amazing. Then we made it to the Tetons for our first. That was the year of the eclipse, so we also on that trip wanted to make it. That was also the first year I kind of skimmed through Oregon. I think that was the first year we discovered Bend, and apparently somebody just wrote a comment on our blog that Bend is not what I remember Bend as being. It's probably the same as San Diego, where there's just tents everywhere. But Bend, that was our first time in Bend, only because I remember mountain biking there. That was amazing. Phil's. So we get the first time to get to, we're heading
Tetons.
We're heading towards the Tetons because we thought, oh, it's the eclipse. Let's watch the eclipse from the Tetons. That will be so fun.
Because it's in the path of the eclipse, right?
Correct.
And that's what I wanted.
That was a good detail. Thank you.
That was a good detail. Sorry.
So we're driving from, the big thing with that trip is we didn't necessarily have an itinerary. So there was like the first time where we're like, all right, let's see where we want to go, and we'll just choose day by day. And we got to Victor, Idaho, and I distinctly remember we had like a day before the eclipse. So we were like, oh, let's wing it. We have time. Remember getting to the stoplight and going left or right. And everyone's like, huh? Like, where do you want to go? Left or right? And they're, I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's just go right.
And this is a common occurrence in our travels over the 6 years, that we literally get to forks in the road. And whether it's a decision for like to see what it is, or we've gotten out of the vehicles and like, Victor, where do you want to go for your, like, what do you want to pursue career-wise? And we get out of the car and we have it out and we make a decision and we go from there. And there are many things like that in life. I think people they gloss over it, but there are many times in life that needs to happen. And so indecision is horrible. And we've literally had those moments. And I do think we're better off for them.
We go right and we go over the Teton Pass. It's our first time. If you've been over Teton Pass 100 times, then you probably take it for granted. But I know there's so many people in the world, or there's so many people I know that have never gone over Teton Pass. Teton Pass is super steep. It's drop dead gorgeous. And we get to the top of the pass, and I had, you know, if you've never been to Jackson Hole, it has this thing, you know, stigma with it. Oh, Jackson Hole. And you get to the top of the pass and you look down on Jackson Hole, and it was really crowded that weekend because of the eclipse. And we get out and I start talking to Ranger Randy. And Ranger Randy grew up in
Jackson, right?
Jackson Hole, but he also has a house in Encinitas, San Diego. So I was like, ooh, you're my kind of person. Like, except I'm not on his level, but I thought like, oh, I'm identifying with you. Yeah, this is cool. You're a mountains and ocean kind of person. And I thought it was really cool. We would sit there and talk to him for like an hour. And in the end, he said, okay, so you have to ride something mom. Whose mom is it?
Phil's mom.
No, it's not Phil. That's Phil's trailhead.
Yeah.
You have to ride Jimmy's mom, because we're like saying, oh, we surf and we mountain bike, except like, let's be honest, we're not that good at any of these things. Gabi is. I'm not, but I still do the bare minimum of it because I enjoy it. And so he's telling us, okay, you got to ride Jimmy's mom. It's so cool because Jimmy was my friend growing up, and his mom bought us bikes. And so we made this trail that starts at the top of the pass and goes down to the bar at the bottom of the hill. And so we went for a hike, and then I go, okay, we went for a hike. Then we're really close to the pass. The whole family goes for this 4-mile hike. Beautiful. Then we come back and I go, Victor, Gabi and I are going to go for a bike ride. And we go for a bike ride and we get lost. And so it takes us really long time. And we get back to the RV and I go, hey, Victor, why don't you, I got to ride Jimmy's mom to see what he's talking about, because I want to know. I just have to know of everything that people tell me. And so we go, hey, meet me at the bar. You take the motorhome down. Gabi and I will ride Jimmy's mom down the mountain, the steep grade that I can't, like, you don't tow your fifth wheel over this. In my blog, I say, don't tow your fifth wheel over this. If we take Momo over this pass, it takes it like, I'll go up at like 30 miles an hour. Like, it's so steep. And so we're like, we'll ride it down. So Gabi and I he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. He rolls his eyes like, my wife, I love her so much, but she always puts me in these horrible positions because he's going to worry about me, rightfully so. And so we go to ride it, and within like maybe 2 minutes, Gabi and I are like, yeah, we need to walk. This is way too steep. This is out of our league. Except that even walking down the trail, Gabi falls and cuts her leg because it's so steep. You can't even walk your bike down it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double black diamond or whatever for mountain biking. It's advanced. You got to get airs. Be ready to get air every few seconds, right? It's big, and you don't even have the right bikes for that. We're on hardtails. We're on hardtails that are like basically cross country bikes. It's a standing joke that Gabi and I we're really not good mountain bikers, but we love mountain biking. And so when we're mountain biking, people always pass us and we look at each other and joke and like, it's the bike or it's the gear, because we're always in like this kind of sweatshirts and leggings. Oh, gear. What about the fact that our bikes have been sitting on the back of a Class C for like years and like they don't even barely shift?
I'll be happy if I get like three gears out of my shifting when I go, well, if you're downhill. And I was like, oh, well, we just need brakes, which they kind of work. Kind of.
Victor, get those fixed.
Yeah, so like 3 hours later, we make it to you after we've like slid down the hill. And we finally eventually get to a road that we don't have to be on the trail, and we ride the road down. And the road was amazing. Yeah. And so that takes us to the Tetons. We're not going to finish this all in one cut.
Of course not.
So maybe we should wrap it up there with the eclipse, like starting with the eclipse next time.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The eclipse, yeah. So we're going to end this with, that was 2017 through California coast. That really could have been its own vlog because the California coast is so amazing. Costa Rica a month, which could have been its own story because it was so great.
Yeah, there's so many stories.
And then our 11-week road trip to the summer, we are ending at August 17th or August 19th, whatever the eclipse was.
Right before the eclipse. On our next podcast, we're going to let you know what it's actually like to be in the path of that eclipse and what mysterious things happen when the darkness comes.
So cool, so cool. In fact, is it an eclipse year this year?
I don't think so. Really?
2021, yes.
Oh, wow.
But we have to go to Argentina.
Yeah.
Which won't happen, I think.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.